his wife's strange obsession with the basement. He glanced across the kitchen at the open door and the stairs that led down into pitch darkness. That was all the distraction she needed. "It's mine," she hissed, her fetid breath curling against his face. She shoved him with the hand not struggling for control of the knife. The man's bare feet slipped on the blood, his blood, pooling on the kitchen floor, and he went down hard, the air knocked violently from his lungs. Before he fully registered what was happening, she was on top of him, stabbing over and over again. "Mine, mine, mine, mine," she whispered. As his vision dimmed, the man's gaze focused on the basement doorway. He'd read in a newspaper article years earlier that the moment of death was usually accompanied by an overall sense of peace. But his terror only increased as he stared at the dark entrance to the basement, and his consciousness slipped away. Soon, the only noises in the room were the knife repeatedly entering flesh, and the woman's strange laughter rising above the growing sound of the storm. Month 1. Tom Decker looked haunted. He stared at himself in the bathroom mirror, the weak light from the fluorescent bulb pulsing down on him as he attempted not to puke his guts out. Jenny was asleep in what passed as their small bedroom, cut off from the rest of the apartment by a flimsy room divider, legs tangled up in the whatever thread-count cotton sheets they'd received from some cousin for their wedding a year earlier. Even though Tom had shut the door, he heard her heavy breathing through the thin walls. His long, greasy hair hung in his eyes, but he could still see himself, and he looked like shit. It was 2 p.m. on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Or was it Sunday? He honestly had no idea. Racked by a violent cough, he spat, then ran the water to wash away the evidence. How many cigarettes had he smoked the night before? He felt even sicker just thinking about it. He really needed to quit. Then again, he'd been telling himself that for years, ever since he was a teen and had started sneaking butts from his dad's never-ending packs. His father had died from lung cancer. It had been ugly at the end. Tom blinked and shook away the memories of the man's sallow face, refocusing on the present, on the far different life he was trying to create for himself in New York City, away from his past. He and Jenny had closed the dingy Alphabet City bar yet again, an easy task since he worked there most nights as the sole bartender. Easy to lock the door at 4 a.m. and stay inside with a few customer friends and his wife and drink a couple more before he finally kicked everyone out. It wasn't unusual for Tom and Jenny to stumble the few blocks to their apartment while the sun was coming up, to pass shocked, offended, or disgusted neighbors heading out for early morning activities. The couple would laugh guiltily as they tripped up the stairs and collapsed into bed, sometimes too drunk to fuck, sometimes not. Last night, he'd switched from beer to bourbon a little after midnight. A rookie mistake. Now his head was pounding, and his stomach was a gurgling mess, but he prided himself on throwing up as seldom as possible. Plus, he was a loud puker, raging lunatic loud, embarrassingly loud, and he didn't want to wake Jenny. Leaning over, Tom splashed water onto his unshaven face. It was a crapshoot at any given moment whether their tiny apartment would have hot water, but right now he welcomed the feel of the icy cold liquid. It tamped down the nausea. How much sleep had he gotten? He didn't have a clue, but it felt as though he'd slept for about 20 minutes. "Tom," Jenny called softly from the bedroom. He pushed his straggly hair up and out of his eyes, exhaled, and blinked several times. The water dropped.